So I'm a consultant and I work every day with teams that are manually deploying things. They're all trying to move towards infrastructure as code and they know that that's where they need to go, but they're all bogged down by all of these tasks that they're currently doing fighting fires. And they just can't afford the time or the investment in either the people or the processes to be able to build these things. But it's part belief because it's not as hard as you would think and you can get started much easier. So I put together this simple Terraform template that I want to walk through in this video. It has predefined best practices based off what Terraform explains and my experience over the past couple of years using Terraform extensively, based on the folder structure as well as how to set up multiple environments and then deploying those environments through GitHub Actions. So I built a custom GitHub action that you can use here. What I have on screen over here is all of the different self-hosted or managed Terraform platforms that they're either a pain to set up or they cost a ton of money. So I want you to avoid all of that and just be able to get started as simple as possible to get things moving. Okay, so here we are in our repository. So a couple things I'll scroll through here. It is a public template, so you can either use this template directly to create your own repository whenever you're building a project, or you can clone this template, change it as you need, use it as an internal thing. So what you'll see, we have a GitHub workflow in here that we'll go through in a minute. And then we have traditional stuff, our main.tf, outputs, variables, but the difference is context.tf, and then we're using tf-vars. So you'll notice if you watch my last video on how to structure Terraform, I don't do the same thing anymore because practices have changed. Now everything is based off a main branch and one set of code, but then we use tf-vars files to change how we deploy that and when you deploy the code. So we'll get more into that here. So I think I mentioned that, but we're using OpenTofu here. And then we're going to be using just dev and prod. You can add as many files as you want. You just add in a new TFRs here and then the environment that I'll show you down in a minute. We are using Cloud Posse modules. So over here, if you haven't heard, they're just an open source infrastructure as code company. Really good modules that I absolutely love using. So really recommend them. They instill some of these best practices so that you don't have to figure them out along the way. You'll be able to start with them, and then as you understand them, it'll make things easier down the line. So getting over here, we have our couple things we're going to build. So we have a storage bucket, a VPC subnets, couple supporting stuff with IAM, and then we're going to build an EC2 instance. So very basic, just building that out. But what you'll see here, this context.tf, never edit this file. It comes from Cloud Posse. And then this is how we supply all of the different Cloud Posse modules with the context that gives it consistent naming standards and tags and a couple other things. So you'll see this takes in things like an environment, a tenant, a namespace, and a stage, as well as all this other additional stuff. And then we pass in context, and that is what we then take out and we pass the module.context into each block. So you'll see the storage, the VPC, the instance profile. We don't pass in a name for these resources because it automatically comes from these values. So that's what makes it so good. The naming standard will always be consistent. Feel free to read more into that. I'll link Cloud Posse below. So this is what we're going to build here. And then inside of our TFRs, very standard, couple things that we're setting for our EC2. And we have a dev and then we have a prod here. And you'll notice the only difference is the stage. So that would be what environment we're working in. All the rest is the same. Now, quickly, we'll go through the get action. So what you're going to see, we are using workflow dispatch. So when you push code, it does not apply to your environments because we're not using branch-based Git here. It is just one, well, we are using branch, but it's only main. We're not pushing to dev branch and pushing to prod branch. It is all going to main and we deploy from there. So we need to choose when we deploy so that your dev changes don't get deployed to prod. This might take a little bit of time for you to understand, but once you start using it, you'll realize that it's a really good workflow. So we have in here, we'll ignore all of this. It's not too important. Anything pull request into main is when this is going to run a Terraform plan, and then you can optionally run Terraform plan, Terraform apply, and Terraform destroy. So we'll get into that here. And a couple things, of course, you're going to need your access keys and your region set. So now going over here, I will show you, we have two instances. These have been deleted from my testing prior to this. So there's nothing currently running in the account. And we're going to go over to actions and I will go ahead to my Terraform deployment. And we are going to kick off a plan. So what you'll see here, we have the action to perform, which is plan. And then we have the environment to run against. So we can do dev or prod because that's what we've set so far. So I'll kick off this plan, and while that starts, I'm going to show you where that gets applied at. So if you come into your settings, go down to secrets and variables and then actions. And inside of here, we have environments. So if I go to manage environment secrets, you'll see I have a dev environment and then a prod environment. So you can just go new environment. I could say I want a UAT environment, create that. And then inside of these environments are your secrets. So I have environment secrets, secret access key, region, and access key ID. So that's where these get pulled from. It'll be different for each one in case you're using different AWS accounts for the different environments or different service accounts even. So now going back to actions, this is running and you'll see it's actually done already. So we go into Terraform deployment and we can ignore everything except for this initialize project and view Terraform. So you'll see here, we are doing our Terraform init, everything's good. And then here's our plan with all the resources we'll build. Again, I'm going to skip through this because it's not super important what we're building right now, just how we are. So that looks good. I'm ready to apply this. Going to go over to run workflow now and hit apply. And again, run it against dev and we'll run this workflow. Go ahead and refresh. And so you'll see every single one is going to be preceded by a plan just to make sure things go smoothly. And then once that plan finishes, we'll actually start the apply here. Whereas in this one you saw, it just stopped. It didn't continue on. Okay, so there's our plan. Looks like that is good. And now we'll go into our apply. Okay, so here is our apply now running. So we have our tofu in it. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh. Yeah, so there it's initialized and now we should be doing our apply. So it looks like our plan was run there within the apply and now we're actually creating the resources. And real quick, oh, it's actually finished. Let's go and refresh. Yeah, so it looks like it created successfully and we can see all of that. Let's scroll down here to the bottom. So yeah, apply completed, 39 resources added, and let's go over here. So now we'll see we have an instance that is running and you'll see it automatically applied the name ES Dev App. And then we should have a new VPC if I come in here as well. I think we're looking for a 172 sider. So go to VPCs and yeah, there we go. ES Dev App again. And so one thing, if you wanted to add naming to these, you can actually do so by adding in this name. So if we go over to storage, I'll show you that. This is in the event that also if you have duplicate resources, like if I was making 3 storage buckets, you need a way to differentiate them. So we'll go on to S3, and this is just a Cloud Posse feature. And inside of S3, you'll see we have ESDev01. So now that that's done, we will go ahead and destroy, and then I'll explain one other benefit of this. So same thing, come to Terraform deployment, run workflow. This time we're going to pick destroy and run workflow. And now one of the benefits to this is that because it's fully on GitHub Actions, you can set up private runners and get into a private network. So if you have to use a VPN or jump boxes to connect to all your resources, you can do all of that with this by just setting up private runners. So if you're interested in doing that and you haven't set up private runners yet, go ahead and check this video here and otherwise subscribe.